Imagine being an Everton fan and not picking any Liverpool players and still winning FPL. Well, this guy did just that. Do not go anywhere. We've got a really special guest today. He won FPL in 2016-17 and he's exclusively revealing his team on this channel. Welcome to the show, Mr. Everton and Mr. Anti-Liverpool, Ben Crabtree. Hello, mate. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, mate, very well. It's lovely to see you. Like, we've not spoken in ages. I feel like the last time we saw each other was probably at Fest, like almost 2 years ago. But we've done the FPL show together, and you kind of saw a bit of fame because you bloody won the game. And what makes it such a good story is, yeah, you beat 4.5 million other managers, but you won it without picking Liverpool players. So you're an Everton fan, right? Has that always been your approach to FPL then? No Liverpool allowed?
Yeah, pretty much from when I was starting, it was kind of more the Gerrard and Lampard sort of battle. So kind of you had one of those, and so I just always went for Lampard, and I mean that often paid off because he was really good. But it was also I was just playing with my mates, and so it's like, well, why would I pick Liverpool players? And you end up supporting all your players. So I didn't really want to be hoping Liverpool won all these games 4-0 kind of thing. So I just kind of didn't do it from then. And obviously back then the game felt a lot smaller, so no one else was really watching or taking any notice. It was just me and a few mates playing, so it didn't really feel like a big issue at the time.
Yeah, like you're playing for mini league success with a few mates, and there you are actually winning the thing. Well, I've followed your progress for years, like, and I know what a great FPL manager you are. So I'm delighted we can show your team. And this is your first draft, and things might change. But as things stand, there's still a no Liverpool approach. And when you're not squeezing in a Mo Salah or a Vert or a Van Dijk, you've got a good team. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Guys, if you're enjoying the video, want to show any support for it, drop a comment, hit the like button, and of course, subscribe to the video. If you're new around here, we've got loads of great preseason content planned, videos from me, but also interviews with managers like Ben. So, Ben, in goal, for a team that doesn't have Salah, you'd think you can go premium in lots of positions, and you have, and boy, is your attack stacked, but you're still going light in goal. Areola, we don't know if Kinski will be first choice, probably not, but you're going to go proper scrape the barrel in goal, are you? You're happy with just getting save points and the occasional clean sheet at 4.5 Areola?
That's generally my starting tactic, because
Yeah.
there does always seem to be a 4.5 mil that comes to the fore. It's just whether you get them on straight away. I wouldn't necessarily predict Areola is the one, but at the moment I'm kind of at just a little past first draft, and it's like putting in the prices. And so these are kind of I'm thinking of 4.5. I do have half a mil in the bank when the team's shown, so there is a chance to go to a 5 mil keeper. But I'm thinking I'll leave the confirmed keeper decision right till the end. But I'm kind of like for now there's Areola, Kelleher, but I don't really like Brentford as a defensive option particularly, albeit I don't know about the new manager, whether he's a bit more defensive than Frank. But I don't know. There's always like, Sells last season. I got good points off Sells. And also I benched him loads because I was like, Forest aren't going to keep a clean sheet in this game. And then he ended up keeping clean sheets. So I
Yeah.
do like the 4.5, but I'm not particularly stuck on Areola at the moment.
Man, you make such a good point. Every year there's one 4.5 where everyone's sleeping on. If you manage to land that guy from game week one, boy, you one saving money and two racking up the points. Loads of people praised me last year because I'd sales early on, and it was like, dude, I can't take any credit for that. Sales is constantly on my bench getting points. Like, it was rubbish because I had two rotatings, and if you just have the one, they often haul in the games you're not expecting them to haul in, and Areola can be that guy. So
Yeah, there's
I like
been
that.
Martinez and Pope in the past have done really well, and there's kind of others going further back, like Stoke goalkeepers, like Begovic used to do
Yes.
well back in the day, sort of thing. So it does always seem like there's one, and they're not always that obvious at the start of the season, but then
Yeah.
a few games in, they kind of come to the fore a little bit. So Areola, I'm not particularly sure about West Ham, but I'm thinking a 4.5 mil keeper anyway.
I'm with you. I don't think that keeper is Kelleher either. I don't fancy Brentford's chances. But let's move forward to your back line, because again, you haven't gone and spent huge money. Like, it's not full of Arsenal and obviously, Liverpool and one Man City in there. Let's start with your premium at 6. Ait Nouri got more attacking returns than any other defender last year in FPL. He was in a Wolves team that barely scored goals. So you've got to think he is going to be. I think people are sleeping on Ait Nouri a little bit.
Yeah, I think Gvardiol's maybe the safer pick,
Yeah.
but Ait Nouri, you feel has got to have a higher ceiling. And if you can obviously never trust Pep, but you'd hope he's bought him as a bit of a change of tactics that loads of centre backs hasn't quite worked for him, especially last season. So he's gone for an actual, this is a left back. And so you
Yeah.
think, surely just play your left back rather than kind of keep messing about. I mean, Guardiola, you can never say he's never going to stop messing about kind of thing. But I think Ait Nouri, I would hope the money they spent on him, he's going to play a lot. And there's just surely attacking returns there for him. I've also, as kind of come to it, I've not got any attacking City. So he's a little bit
Yeah.
my attacking City hedge, which maybe Guardiola's a bit safer, but I do just like Ait Nouri. I think I've gone. I think I've gone a semi-safe-ish team on certain players with regards to their play time, and Ait Nouri's maybe one of my risks. But I'm kind of willing to take the risk on him because I think there could be really big points there. And 6 mil, he's kind of, if he does play and he does get I think it's almost, if he plays enough, he will get the returns that next season he's 6.5, 7 mil. It's more just, does he play enough? I don't think the returns are too much of an issue.
The Club World Cup indicated it's Guardiola as left centre back and Ait Nouri at left wing back or left back with a license to get forward. I like that pick very much. He's someone firmly on my radar. One guy that's not left my game week 1 team, and I'm getting people commenting on YouTube going, he's not a starter. You're an Everton fan. He's 5 million, so he's 0.5 cheaper than both Branthwaite and Tarkowski. He'll play right back mostly, I guess, but if there's an injury at centre back, he plays centre back. O'Brien's an underrated 5 million pick, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. He was straight in my team.
Was he good? Yeah.
I was kind of hoping he would be cheaper than Tarkowski, because otherwise, like, Tarkowski's the one to go for. But since Moyes took over, then he's played right back. We've not got other options at right back. Young's gone, Coleman's injured a lot, and he's not as good as O'Brien.
Is Patterson up to much? Because he obviously can play there, but he's always getting injured. And
yeah, I think he looked promising like 3 years ago, and then he's been injured a lot. Deitch never fancied him then when he was fit. Moyes didn't fancy him when he was fit. O'Brien also, when he came into the team, it was kind of like, it became a criticism of Deitch. Why have you not been playing this guy? And Moyes has just come in, brought him in. Moyes tried to buy him when he was at West Ham.
Oh, right.
There's kind of all the signs are O'Brien's going to be right back. I think the only thing is we tried to get Tete on a free, and so there would have been genuine competition there, and it would have been, don't know who would have played. But I think at the moment, unless Everton sign a right back, then O'Brien's going to be the one. So I think he's pretty safe. And there's obviously he's 6'6" or something. I think there's more attacking potential for him than, I think he got 1 goal last season, but I think there's more goals for him there. And then in terms of kind of blocks and these sort of things that are now taken more into account, he's pretty solid defensively. If he comes up against a tricky winger, he can end up getting quite a lot of those points. But yeah, I think for 5 mil, Everton's defence has been really good the last 2 seasons, given where we finished in the league. I'm optimistic that we're going to finish a bit higher this season. And so I'd like to think that the defensive side is going to be at least as good as what it has been. And so there should be points there for him.
Yeah, like mate, this is all music to my ears. I'm so glad we've had this discussion. He's not leaving my draft. Look, Tarkowski and Branthwaite might edge him for points, but to save 500,000 and have 6'6" winning headers, hopefully in the opposition box, I think there's huge goal threat there from set pieces. We did see, in the Fantasy Football Scout members area, you can filter now by defensive contributions per 90. From last season, and Tarkowski is the 3rd best defensive performer. And obviously, Bednarak and Huijsen aren't in the Premier League next year, so he's going to eat up those points. But I think O'Brien isn't on this list of like top 15 or whatever it is, but he's not far behind. There are some gems on here, like 4.5 million options, like Anderson at Fulham, Agbadu at Wolves. There's a few on there, like even Senesi at Bournemouth features. This is all in the Scout members area, and if you do want to check that out, there's a QR code on screen or link in the description. It's 47% off just for pre-season with this link. Go check it out. Your other defenders, mate, we don't necessarily go into all of them. Esteve's the standout 4 million pick. Wan-Bissaka is the most popular in the game. Lewis Hall is an interesting one because Newcastle have got tough fixtures, but set pieces, gets forward. He was brilliant in FPL last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, there was a spell where it seemed every Newcastle goal he seemed to be involved in it pretty much,
Yeah,
and then he got injured and it was quite bad injury. But he, I was sort of and ahhing with him a lot last season because I thought he had disappointed a little bit in Newcastle for the potential that I thought he had. But then as the season went on, then he properly stepped up and looks to have nailed down that left back spot. And the kind of creativity that it seemed he had, it's great crossing. It all seemed there. So even though it looks like Isak's probably not going to be there, I think if it's a bit of guesswork, but it looks like they're trying to replace him with Sesko, who's massive, and so we'll probably enjoy those kind of crosses, corners and such. So I think Hall's pretty good, and he's another one where I kind of think if he has a full season, he could be a 6.5 million next season. He could end up with 8, 9, 10 assists sort of thing. Maybe there's a couple of goals. I don't know. But I've got kind of four players, so he doesn't need to be in every starting 11. Although he's
yeah.
5.5, he's going to be in the large majority. At the moment, I've got him on the bench, for example, for Villa away, and then he's going to come straight back in. So yeah, he's I wouldn't say he's 100% nailed, but I'm quite excited to own him. So I'm leaning towards he probably will be in my game week 1 team.
Proper differential. I like it. Let's have a look at that attack then, because this is where it gets really fun. Like, not only because it's a no Salah team, but it's also got a ton of money in attack. Like, when we look at some of the prices of the attackers, like to get them all in, front line especially, but even the midfield, like, let's start with, we'll get to Arsenal in a minute. Let's start like, and Palmer, I think everyone knows what he offers, but I'm intrigued on your 7 and your 8 million spots here. So Cunha is a player that will get a lot of love because of what he did last year. And because obviously in Manchester United red, there's a lot of United managers that play FPL, and there's always a slight United tax. And Burmo, Bruno, Cunha will all be popular. Do you fancy him to hit the ground running and be a talisman at United like he was at Wolves then?
He's one of my risks. So I had him quite a lot of Wolves, and I even captained him when he was at Wolves, which is generally, you don't captain Wolves players. But he delivered for me, and so I think like you have a bit of bias for players that have done well for you in the past. Um, I'm not sure he's actually a great fit for Man U long term, given his kind of personality and maybe the personalities that Man U need. But at the same time, I just feel he could really hit it off at Man U and just make 8 mil look really cheap because he is a little bit selfish. He's kind of one of those like he likes to shoot anywhere around the box. He's looking to shoot, and he might force Fernandez a touch deeper, and then he gets the advantage of Fernandez's passing ability, and so it's kind of like he's on the end of the passes. He's the one looking to shoot. So I just think for 8 mil, I quite like him at that price. And I just think he could score 12 to 15 goals. Like it wouldn't be that surprising. And so for a midfielder, he also could be playing kind of the majority almost up front. Like he could be a very attacking 10 or
Yeah,
even find himself at the end of games at 9 when the
yeah.
game's opened up a bit. So I just think there's a lot of potential there for him to kind of make 8 mil look quite cheap. And so when I was kind of going through and I'm looking at other players that I could have, he's just one who I kind of felt I think he's worth the risk, and so I do quite like him in there.
Yeah, I'm with you that he could get some minutes at 9, even late in games. And knowing the 9 options, if they don't buy, like Hoyland Xerxes, you could even see Cunha maybe taking some minutes there. But yeah, even as a 10, he's going to be, his performances are going to be up. Because the one thing I look at Cunha and sometimes go, oh, he's walking, he's throwing tantrums. At Wolves, maybe you can do that. I hope he doesn't do that at United and he steps into that bigger role. Rodgers was amazing last year. Probably a little bit underrated because he was just consistently good all season. He wasn't banging in braces and hat tricks, but boy, did he earn the price tag of 7 million. He's a 90-minute man playing for one of the best attacks in the league at 7 million. I don't know why he's not in more drafts. I'm struggling not to pick Morgan Rodgers. Is he sort of a non-negotiable for you?
A little bit, but based on that price, I'm surprised he hadn't gone up more because
Yeah.
from watching him play, I thought he was brilliant last season, and that he could have got more returns. And I think he's hearing him a few interviews as well. He's one of those players where he seems pretty switched on, quite mature, and I think his career progression, like I don't think he's kind of done as well as he can do, kind of thing. I think there's more to come from him. It'll probably benefit him as well, them not being in the Champions League, because there might be a few rests that he can get in the Europa League games, whereas, especially early on, he doesn't particularly need to play in some of those. And yeah, I think Villa have got decent fixtures, if I'm right, at the start.
Very
And
good. Top of the ticker.
I think one of the ways that you can almost look at whether a player is underpriced or not, or overpriced even, but from Rodgers' point of view, if you take 500,000 off them, is their price suddenly like ridiculous? And if you take 500,000 off Rodgers and he's only 6.5, that would just be ridiculous. So if he's that close to a ridiculous price, 7 mil's cheap. And so I would easily pay 7.5 for him. It would be at 8 where I'd be like, okay, maybe not, but also maybe. So at 7 mil, I just don't see him going anywhere from the team. I don't see anyone who's going to be as good a value around that price.
I'm going to ask you at the end of this video, so stay tuned for it. We're going to see the rest of Ben's team, but in 5-10 minutes time, I'm going to ask you some of your tips to success and how you won FPL. And that point you make about take 500,000 off a player's price and then go, is it a ridiculous price point? And the vast majority of players, if we do that for, do it to Palmer, you do it to Saka, it doesn't apply, right? They're priced right. You make a great point on Rodgers. There is another player that you can do that to who you can't pick, and that is Florian Wirtz. I think if we saw Florian Wirtz at 8, we'd be going, that's a joke, because at 8.5, we're already going, that's generous. But there's another one up front that we're about to get to that I think has been priced very generously. And we saw on Monday it announced. We'll talk about Saka when we talk about this guy because they play for the same team. You know who I'm talking about, guys. But that is Gyokeres. And I think if we take 0.5 off his price, it would be a joke. But even at 9 million, boy, we're pretty happy with that, aren't we? I wouldn't have been surprised if he was 9.5. If he was 10, I probably would have accepted it. At 9, knowing he's going to take pens, very likely, and be number 9 for Arsenal, who create loads of chances. What a great pick he is.
Yeah, he's someone who we've followed a little bit, actually, because we've got a Coventry fan at work. And so he knew Gyokeres really well. And after his last season at Coventry, Everton tried to buy him, but he went to Sporting instead. So he chose Sporting ahead of us. And so it's always one of those when you've been close to a player, you kind of see how they're doing. And just straight from the off at Sporting, it was like, oh, he scored a load of goals, scored a hat trick, scored this. He's done this for Sweden now, and just everything. Seeing a few of his goals as well. So he was someone, when I saw Arsenal linked from an FPL point of view, I was like, I really want them to get him, because unless he's a ridiculous price, then he's coming straight in my team. It was just a no-brainer for me. I was kind of, because I had Isak there at 10.5, and he was never going to be that much. So it was just kind of like, as soon as he joins, he's in my team straight away.
Yeah, everyone's going to say, oh, he played in Portugal. The numbers are rubbish. Look at his performances for Sweden and in the Champions League, and they're elite, and that's good opposition, right? Comparing to Isak, Champions League, like per 90, like you're looking at like a goal involvement a game versus Isak a goal involvement every 3 games. In the Nations League, 4 games for Isak, 6 for Gyokeres. Per 90 involvement of 2.2 for Gyokeres, 1.2 for Isak. Like his numbers are elite, even when he does make that step up. I have no doubt he's going to bang him in the Premier League. So a proper exciting pick. How does he work for you with Bukayo Saka? Because I think Saka's price now looks a little bit expensive because he's probably losing pens. But for you, Saka and Gyokeres is a great duo that you can stretch to because you don't have any Liverpool players, right? Is Saka going to stay? Because you could move Saka down and then maybe move a Baleba up, or you could or a defender, another premium defender. Are you fixed on Saka? Because I feel like you're fixed on Gyokeres. Are you fixed on Saka?
I think for the start of the season, probably yes. If it looks like Saka's really affected, then and he's suddenly looking expensive, especially like I suppose pens is the thing, but I would have the pens either way. I'm getting the Saka points or the Gyokeres points. It doesn't really matter to me who gets the pen as long as they score it. But if Saka's basically not getting that many points, then he would be one to get rid of. But I think I like him there from the start. Although they've got tricky fixtures, they're kind of in a bit of context. are Man U great defensively? You
Yeah,
know, are they going into that first game with a bit of onus on them where they need to kind of, attack a bit? And then is Saka really good on the counter attack? So it's kind of like there's some points there at Man U away. Leeds at home and Forest at home, there's surely points there
yeah,
for Arsenal attack. And then even City at home, like when was the last time City were considered a good defensive team kind of thing?
yeah,
Last season everyone was scoring against them. They get knocked out by Al Hilal. It's not really. They're probably not going to score at home to City. And then okay, the Liverpool away game's tough, but at the same time, there could be a goal there, and you get the points for the goal. So
yeah.
I'm looking at it like if there's some points there for having double Arsenal attack, and then after that it gets better. So I'm kind of content having it. And then if one of them seems, if Gyokeres for whatever reason doesn't look up to the pace, or if there's, he's really on like 50-50 minutes with Havertz, then obviously I can move him on if Saka's really affected. But I'm just looking at my options when I rule out certain players, what I'm left with. And to go Saka and Gyokeres, I'm kind of like, well, I'm happy with that. If Arsenal weren't very good attacking last season, but they should be a good attacking team. And a big part of that was that Saka was injured for loads of it, and they didn't have a proper number 9. And now both of those have been resolved. So I'm quite confident that Arsenal are going to get some goals.
Yeah, fair play. That game week 2 fixture versus Leeds. If Haaland and Salah have quiet days and they don't have the best fixtures, Haaland and Salah, Newcastle and Spurs, and Palmer goes to West Ham, to be able to captain an Arsenal attacker and own 2 Arsenal attackers, as you will, could be a huge, huge swing game week 2. So I like that. Leeds at home because it's got the proper high ceiling for either of those boys. Let's see your front line in just a sec. When we see the most expensive forwards, you got a couple of them on here, which is pretty tasty. Let's see the rest of that front line then. So Gyokeres alongside Watkins and João Pedro. João Pedro's highest owned player in the game at the moment. Do you rate him above the other 7.5s like Solanke and Wood? Have you looked at Mateta? Do you think João Pedro's clear? Are you worried about minutes? He'll start, but you'll see a lot of early subs maybe.
I think I'm teetering on João Pedro, to be honest. He was kind of in there when I had initially done my team. I had left the third attacker as last, and then I only had a tiny bit of money, so I put Beto in there. Initially, it's just like, well, this will do for now. I think he'll start the season, but he's not long term.
Yeah.
And then I tweaked a couple of things because I did watch the Club World Cup final with João Pedro, and I was impressed by him.
Yeah.
But I still don't see him as maybe a goal scorer enough. But he's only 7.5, so it's not like you need him to score like 18, 20 goals for 7.5. But I think for me, it's more the minutes that he's just likely to come off on 60 minutes quite a lot. And that's going to be really frustrating, especially if there's kind of like, you see it opening up, Palace at home, maybe they go 2-0 up and you're like, oh, okay, they got him on the ropes here. And then he gets hooked and the lap comes on. And you're like, this is where all the points were for João Pedro. So I do think he's likely to become Solanke as a little bit of Thomas Frank being an attacking manager.
Yeah.
Tottenham's wingers midfield being a bit like, I don't know who's playing here. They've got a load of players. Even if Son goes, they've got loads of options.
Yeah.
Whereas Solanke's kind of the only option in that number 9. And Thomas Frank's done pretty well with like Tony. Then he goes. Then it's Visser. He becomes really good, gets like 18 league goals or something. So can he get Solanke firing? I'd kind of back him to do that. I mean, there's a lot of creativity behind Solanke. So I'm kind of, the more I think about it, the more I think Solanke's probably a better pick than João Pedro.
Yeah, I'm torn on that one as well, mate. And you make a great point on Thomas Frank teams producing big chances for their number 9s. And Solanke surely has to be the biggest beneficiary of Thomas Frank going to Spurs because of big chance Brentford being big chance Spurs. But a guy that gets big chances aplenty, probably doesn't have pens, probably doesn't matter. He's outscored Erling Haaland in the last 2 seasons. Ollie Watkins. outscored Haaland in the last 2 seasons. He's only 9 mil. I feel like this is a good price point for Watkins. I think I thought he might come in a little bit higher than that. So Rodgers Watkins double up, but also no Haaland. So just talk to me about that, because when you see a no Salah team, you expect to see a Haaland, but you're going without both potentially. Are you fairly set on that?
I think so, in that I like a lot of the players in this team. So I've not actually done a Haaland draft to compare with, but from the off, when I was looking at the prices, I think Salah's quite a lot better option than Haaland.
Yeah.
And so if I go Haaland, I'm only gaining 500,000, which is probably lost on Verts anyway for people going Salah and Verts. And
Yeah.
then I end up with like the same team, but Salah's better than Haaland kind of thing. So I feel like I need to go quite different. And looking at, like, as you've mentioned, for Haaland to be 14 mil is a bit crazy when you look at all other seasons in the Premier League for like great forwards that there have been, and they've not been 14 mil. And you've got someone like Watkins who's outscored in the last 2 seasons, and he's well cheaper. And so City, I'm not sold on. If they'd smashed it in the Club World Cup, I'd be like, all right, I've got to have Haaland. But I'm still just looking at them like, I don't think they're going to be challenging for the title. I fancy it's Liverpool and Arsenal right at the top. I don't fancy City to kind of be there come the end of the season. And so I'm looking at Watkins, just like, as long as they don't buy anyone else. I don't fully know why he got dropped for a little period towards the end of last season. I know he got some loan deals in, but Watkins is so consistent and being so good for them. It seemed a bit harsh to suddenly rotate him. But he's so consistent from an FPL point of view. He's captainable in some games, and he just ticks along. It's nice when you've got an attacking player who also gets assists as well as the goals, and he's involved in both. It's sort of, whenever you hear Villa have scored, if you got Watkins in your team, you're kind of like optimistic. You're thinking he's probably got something to do with it. So again, another no Champions League beneficiary. There's a bit more rest there likely, and so 9 mil. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, again, he got, say, even if it's less points than Haaland, if it's like 20 less points, that's worth the 5 million saving. The only issue with him is obviously Haaland is more the captain option.
Yeah.
But if Haaland's not going to do it as captain, then it's a waste. So I've got a little more. Captain might be a headache with the team that I've got, because I've not really got the standout go-to, always captain this player kind of thing if in doubt. But if I can play it right, then Watkins is one of my options there, and I'll back him to get points.
Yeah, fascinating. That's a great take on Watkins. He was in my first team and Rodgers in my second. I probably only got going to have one, but I like them both very much. There's something not going on. There's something between Emery and Watkins. I don't know what it is. The relationship was broken a little bit. For him to have some big benchings against like PSG and stuff was weird. So I hope Watkins stays and still delivers for Emery. Mate, let's talk a little bit about advice, because you won FPL. What's your one, if you had to give our viewers like one nugget or of advice, like what would you go with? What got you to that finish line as first in the world?
I think one of the things that I did that season really well, which isn't so much advice, but I picked great captains, or they paid off. My captains paid off. And obviously, you can't just say your advice is pick a great captain every week. And it's like, oh, okay, I hadn't thought of that. But it does make such a difference that I got a huge percentage of my points from captain points. And I was
Yeah.
kind of lucky enough that season that Lukaku did so well. And because I was so close to him, I captained Lukaku loads in games where people are like, you don't captain an Everton player. And I'm like, no, it's Bournemouth at home, captain Lukaku, and he scores 4 goals and stuff like that. So it's I think the if you win it, or if you're going to do really well, captain's sort of the most important thing. I think with regards to like a bit of advice kind of thing, I mean, generally, I'm kind of like wild card early-ish, game week 5, 6, around there. I think wild carding as soon as like game week 2, game week 3, I think that's too early personally, because you just do get on players who have done well for 1 or 2 weeks, and potentially that's like their peak form for the whole season. So I'd say try and hold off on a wild card for a little bit. And then a little other thing that I tend to do is, if I'm torn between 2 players, really torn, is just always go for the cheaper option.
Nice.
I'm
Okay.
and potentially on transfers as well. Another thing that has paid off quite well in the past is if you're really unsure, just don't do anything. And then quite often, 1 week later, you're not even considering the players who you actually were just considering, and you've got another transfer rolled over. So I think they're like a few bits of info that I do like to play by, if I can remember them.
Yeah, I like that. With money in mind, A versus B, you like them both, go for the cheaper one. If you're unsure on something, maybe best just not to do it and roll that transfer. And especially now, adapting to the new rules of being able to roll so many. Mate, that is so, so valuable. Thank you so much. I love the way you manage. I love the way you articulate your points, talk about your team. This has been a thoroughly enjoyable watch and listen for me, and I hope it has been for everyone at home. So show Ben a little bit of love by hitting those buttons, like, subscribe, comment, but also check him out on Twitter. I will drop your handle in the description below so you can all see that, Crabdog on Twitter. Mate, I look forward to chatting again. Look, maybe we can catch up before game week 1 to see how many of these made it into your team, but I reckon the shape is there, and I think more than most people I've spoken to, I think a lot of your team feels like it's very close. So that's really interesting too. Any final points?
No, I was just going to say on that. I'd say probably there's like 10 that I think are probably set here. I
Yeah,
think it's just a few little around the edges, keepers and such like that. Belieber, we'll
yeah.
see. But I think I've probably got like 10 players here who I'm going to go with. I will do a Haaland draft at some point, but I just don't see myself liking it as much as this.
Mate, I love that. I could tell by the way you were talking about your team that you were fairly set on a lot of them, which is so, so good. Because my big thing this point of pre-season is every draft I upload, it's like people going, oh, he's going to rip up his team and go again in a week. And maybe that's the way, maybe I am, and maybe many do. But I can tell you're more considered than that, which is brilliant, and probably why you're one FPL. Guys, thank you all for watching. See you for another video in 24 hours time. Bye-bye.